Welcome to Intelligent Automation Radio, the number one podcast for IT executives seeking insights on the impact and opportunities for innovation that automation is delivering to businesses around the world. Featuring thought leaders in AI, machine learning, orchestration, security automation, and the future of work. And now, on with the show. Welcome, everyone. My name is Guy Nadivi, and I'm the host of Intelligent Automation Radio. Our guest on today's episode is Kieran Gilmurray, Global Automation Lead and an internationally recognized intelligent automation expert who writes and speaks extensively about the subject. Kieran is prolific in the amount of content he puts out. He publishes great articles on LinkedIn about best practice tips and general guidance on automation. We're always on the lookout for that kind of thought leadership to expose our audience to. So we've asked him to come onto the show, and he's here with us today. Kieran, welcome to Intelligent Automation Radio.
Fantastic. Absolutely delighted to be here. Thanks for asking.
Kieran, how did you end up in the field of intelligent automation?
Gosh, Guy, I started out in technology and business about 25 years ago. Always been fascinated by both. Love the technology, but more often than not, or in reality, love what the technology can do for business. Just been fascinated with from the very first computer I had to go through all the usual stuff, DOS, Windows 95, all the Windows products, all the Apple's products, you name it, just always been an enthusiast, got excited by it, and just stayed in the industry for years and years and years, despite, or I say tech and business industry, but I've moved between different businesses that have all managed to use technology to really drive value, really make the lives of staff and customers that little bit more interesting, and hope to goodness to be in the industry for the next 20 years.
In your writings, you often use the term, quote, digital dexterity, end quote, which was coined by Gartner, but as yet has no consensus definition. However, for the purpose of our discussion today, let's agree that digital dexterity means people in all manner of work roles need to get more technically proficient in a variety of skills as organizations digitally transform. We know that this is going to be very challenging for many, and for some will be a bridge too far, so to speak. One extreme example has been the efforts in the Appalachian areas of the US to turn coal miners into coders. That effort hasn't gone well. Yet the best jobs of the future will in fact be the ones where people can leverage technologies like automation and AI to achieve order of magnitude improvements in their performance. Aside from the fact that many automation vendors are moving towards or have already achieved no-code, low-code platforms, what else can be done to enable digital dexterity in the workforce?
Brilliant question. And it's interesting because lots and lots of the vendors in different parts have described, wanting to develop digitally dexterous AI ninjas or citizen developers or citizen analysts. And I think for some, that's the equivalent of a citizen dentist. It'd be nice if everyone could fix their teeth, but not feasible. I'm a personal fan that all these technologies are developing. I do believe that not everybody can become a developer, for want of a better phrase, a specialist skill set honed over years and years and years. But it doesn't mean that folks, Guy, can't become part of a digital transformation effort of a firm. Firms will always need developers, but they'll also need business analysts. They'll need process SMEs or technical managers. They'll need SEO specialists and so on. This has been driven by changes in customer expectations, consumerization of technology leaps, and what's going to happen is that all these things are impacting firms and people are going to learn or need to learn these technologies. I think someone quoted the other day that this will be the first generation born that will work until they're 100 and they'll have a whole lot of careers. And if that's the case, there's going to be a whole lot of lifelong learning as a necessity. And therefore, in addition to lifelong learning of anything and everything that's digital, AI, low code, or whatever else, we really, really need to have HR plans that help folks develop these skills. We're going to have, really joined up thinking on future thinking as to where organizations are going to go, where they'll need to bring data, where they'll need to bring digital and automation to, not just small IT teams who couldn't possibly cope to feed what I would describe as a digitally hungry workforce or digitally hungry consumers. There just isn't enough of them. There isn't enough time. But all of these tools, all of this learning, all of this direction, all of this forward thinking in the best organizations is going to have to be brought together to harness people and technology to reimagine work, to unlock new ways of working, to deliver value. All these things need to come together to augment staff, to allow them to solve problems creatively and effectively. I don't think there's just one thing they can do, to make all of these things happen, but definitely pass over the technology, provide the training, provide the direction. And that's where the business is going and how organizations can do it. Get everybody involved in the effort, including people who can't code. And that's not to say that coders are the most important people in the world, but not everybody can. There's lots of roles. And then allow people, and this is culturally, to make some mistakes, allow them to be agile, allow them to be innovative, allow them to better succeed with digital transformation efforts, break down those silos, and get the organization, particularly the executive team behind them, to help drive and remove any barriers to doing digitally dexterous work.
The prospect of working till 100 might be alarming to some, but it's actually a good segue to my next question for you. As you know, sometimes introducing automation into an organization can trigger some resistance from employees due to fear of job loss or radical job change. We refer to that resistance here on the podcast as robophobia, and it can, in fact, pose a serious cultural obstacle for enterprises deploying automation on their journey towards digital dexterity. Kieran, what tactics have been most successful for you in overcoming robophobia?
Yeah, fantastic phrase, Guy. I don't think robophobia is a surprise, to be absolutely honest. I'll use the phrase the lazy media, have been full of stories about massive job losses. And then I think vendors themselves have presented, how easy technology is to executives who've eagerly drank at the foundation of job losses and millions saved, only to discover that jobs haven't disappeared. And therefore, before you attempt to look at digitization and automation in organizations, people have got fed up with it. They're up in arms. They're either actively or passively blocking it. And, if you're one of those folks, having seen the news, heard the stories, maybe not been truthfully spoken to, like, why would you want to do something or help out in a way that's going to kill you without any plan of or succession plan or progress or idea what the future looks like? And this is the bit, all the same, we have to remember that, jobs have always changed or roles have always changed. The clickety click, in other words, the repetitive, mundane, dull tasks have always been there. They're essential, but dull and boring and low value. The thinkety think tasks, the bit that where organizations are willing to pay money for, the creative, intuitive, and empathetic, they're going to be very hard to replace with robots anyway. And this is the bit where we need to make sure that organizations are explaining, number one, the people at the center of all of their business, that they're not just going to kill jobs and robots aren't going to be able to do that anyway. They need to have honest, unvarnished, truthful conversations about the need for change. They need to paint a bright and shiny future to help people understand the disruption and the investment is going to be worth it, not that they're going to lose their jobs and just go. They need a HR plan to develop and grow talent internally. Very often you see new, shiny people coming in and been told that they're great, and the message is obviously by imposition, the existing staff are bad. But this, not having talent inside of an organization that's digital, that understands how to use robots and data and intelligent automation tools is a sign of HR failure. That's to align with business strategy and to understand markets. I would recommend organizations have an executive sponsor with money and time to invest. Has to be a top 5 initiative. I would make each executive explain and own each transformation initiative inside of the organization. They're not allowed to sit in an ivory tower, not wanting to get their hands dirty. They need to own it. They need to deliver it. I think organizations not only should develop their own talent, but they should bring in talent where there's a shortage, but make sure they codify and share that knowledge throughout the organization. They need to listen to people when they're asking how or challenging change. Not everybody will understand. And very often executive teams do a very poor job of explaining the what, the why, and the how, and what it means in terms of that bright, shiny future for people, or have a plan for those impacted. I think organizations need to make it fun. Change is difficult, it's hard. So do stuff like have a robot building competition, a naming convention, all sorts of things that you can do, reward innovation. But that's all nice stuff. But I would also, urge organizations that if people can't change, then they need to exit. It's as simple as that, because organizations must change and they can't navigate around people to their ultimate demise. But ultimately, one thing I would say is, look, build a business case that stacks up. So it's all very well getting excited by all the technology, everybody owning the initiatives, bright and shiny plans been put out across the organization, and everyone telling everyone else that people are centered to business. But if this plan does not stack up, and that's the ringing of cash tills that earns the company the right to play on the playing field tomorrow, then you've got it wrong right at the very starting hurdle. So I don't think there's one thing to get organizations over robophobia, or to get this bright, beautiful future in people's minds and in their line of sight. There's lots of things that need done, but ultimately, once you have the phobia and everything else removed and everyone excited about it, just make sure it all stacks up financially. Otherwise, don't begin in the first place. Take the money and do something else with it.
Let's talk about some of the tools and technology you alluded to. We're hearing more and more about process mining and other AI-based discovery platforms being deployed as part of digital transformations. How do you think these tools are impacting adoption rates for automation?
Well, let me begin, Guy, by saying firms have to be careful with new shiny AI tools. AI is now the buzzword that gets executive excited. Not all of these work, and not all of them work for the organizations with their existing tech either. And that's true of a lot of AI tools, and it's particularly true of process mining technologies. But these tools are becoming more successful. They are growing in number, which can only help drive automation. Because remember, with the greatest respect to people in the world, people inherently don't understand the processes they're automating. That's not meant as a criticism, it's just meant as a broad statement. Over time, people unconsciously or develop unconscious competency, having practiced or delivered the process for so long. We do things without thinking. So when it comes to being asked to describe a process, its nuances, its exceptions, the detail that we need for robots or AI or data analytics programs to understand it, we struggle. And that's where this tech comes in to help. But sticking process mining software on a desktop and believing it or other AI tools is going to be capable of answering every question is where people go wrong. Ultimately, organizations are a collection of processes. And I always sort of wonder why we talk about automation COEs or IT COEs or whatever else. I wonder why we don't have process COEs and then wrap everything else around it. But simply automating or identifying the as-is process is the equivalent for many organizations of, they're then going to automate it using AI. It's like putting a Ferrari inside a Ferrari engine inside a very small car engine. It just makes no sense. So whilst these tools are growing in adoption because they help organizations describe the as-is probably better than the people in the organization themselves, no criticism, I mentioned unconscious competency. The real bit here is, how do organizations map where they are today? That's the use of the tool. But more importantly, where they want to be tomorrow, where digitally they want to be tomorrow, and draw that to be digital automation nation plan out, and use the where we are map to work out the gaps between as is and to be to help organizations get there. So in summary, yes, the tools are growing in importance. No, they won't work for everything. Treat them with an air of caution, but design for digital and then work your way from where you are to where you want to be at a rate of knots, so that you end up in this digital future that really should be the only thing that executives are talking about at this moment in time.
Since you mentioned them, let's talk about COEs. Just about every automation vendor advocates for organizations to create an automation center of excellence as part of their digital transformation initiative. However, EMA research reports that only 7% have done so, despite there being some good anecdotal evidence that a COE plays a major role in an organization's automation success. Now, you've recently written about the importance of COEs and what role they should play. Why do you think they haven't proliferated as widely as they should?
Yeah, great question. Automation, and we're all talking about it at this moment in time, it's a relatively new technology, or again, intelligent automation, hyper automation, robotic process automation, whatever flavor you want to call it. Lessons with all technologies need to be learned, and they're normally learned over time, and best practices are formed. The old, many eggs have to be broken to make the right cake side of things. Now, after 3, 5, 8 years, industry experts, and there's very few of these automation industry experts, now understand the rules. And that's the bit where they now understand that COEs have to be part of the plans. The vendors, the business themselves now understand what works and what doesn't work. And particularly with COEs, no project takes care of itself, just as no cake makes itself. And therefore, teams need leaders, they need direction. Automation is a massive team sport. It's taken time to realize that from failing projects that drifted off into the sunset and got nowhere. So therefore, a COE and a capable automation leader who can weave magic, and recognize that COEs cost money. Firms recognize that they need to pay money for quality people and quality teams. You can't do this at scale with a desktop PC and plenty of the right intentions, but no real money, limited knowledge, and a lack of IT support. If you want to get transformative, you put a COE in place, you understand the rules, you get a person who understands, or persons who can drive this, you invest in it, you fund it well. All those things are true of automation or any other technology you're rolling out. Put the right group in place, fund it, support it, politically cover it, do whatever you need to do, but create those groups. A COE is what I would describe as automation 101. Get behind it, make it happen, and good things will happen. If you expect something to happen without direction, without sponsorship, without ownership, without paying the right money and the right number of people to do a job, it just isn't going to happen. It's just a bit sad that it's taken 3, 5, 8+ years to recognize this, but I expect that 7% to go up higher if firms are willing to pay the money to allow it to happen. If they're not, automation won't work. If they build the COEs and invest, automation does work.
Kieran, one of your articles earlier this year provocatively claimed that if your automation program isn't making money, then it's failed. Now, you didn't specify how much money it should be making, presumably leaving that up to each organization to decide for itself. But that left me curious. When you evaluate a process to be automated, is there a minimum ROI you need in order to justify automating it?
Yeah, I think there's few industry stats, and as you say, they're all different. But in my mind, any automation and digitization programs worth its salt ought to knock 30% off the cost base. That's target number one. And number two is, look, it's not only about knocking cost off, because any organization can do that without too much difficulty. This is about transforming your organization to generate a new business and therefore new revenues. And the minimum at that, or minimum ROI you should be expecting, is 15 to 20%. Otherwise, why bother? We're talking here about, the need for deep, all-in transformation, the kind that excites and scares in equal measure. And firms need to understand, look, if you want an exceptional program, you're going to have to go all in. You can't go in half-heartedly. You can't set up an average program and expect exceptional returns. It's a bit like paying to go to an average cinema to watch an average set of actors and actresses perform in an average movie while you eat average popcorn and come out why you didn't have the time of your life. Firms need to get in, they need to get out. Anything less is meaningless and prone to failure. So I say 30% knock off your cost base, and a minimum 15 to 20% by transforming very, very quickly. And then you can expect the numbers to go up on that when you've truly digitized and automated your organization.
With all the automation projects you've overseen, are there any particular ones that stand out as the most successful business process you've automated?
There's probably the ones that stand out best are the ones that have gone well, and the ones that have majorly not gone well as well. I've had different programs, and I'll not name the organizations, but they've delivered, just under 5 million of revenue in 2 years with 2 bots. I've had 3 bots saving an organization 10 million a year. So those are fantastic, and we've implemented in one organization more than 120 bots to do really transformative stuff. But I'd love to sit here and claim victory every time I've ever done something. But I give you one absolutely crazy failure, which was a POV that failed so badly it's hard to look back without being embarrassed. We looked at too complex a process. Not all the business partners were engaged. There was relatively weak vendor talent, if truth be told. The technology landscape underneath was shifting. The IT team blocked it, passively, aggressively, and. So there's nearly every classic mistake in the book. Now that sticks out in my mind, as well as the successes. But it's like everything in life. It's my experience is unique and now valuable. If I don't make mistakes, I don't learn lessons. If you don't learn, you don't improve, and if you don't crack eggs, you can't bake. All the things that have gone well over the years, absolutely delighted. All the things that haven't gone well, I've learned lessons and put it in the back of my mind to make the next project work better. But automation can deliver huge savings, huge incomes, and huge headaches. You just hope that you have more savings and income than you do the headaches over time. So probably both, Guy, both good and bad.
Let's talk about a particularly big headache, the COVID-19 pandemic. From your vantage point, Kieran, how has COVID-19 impacted automation initiatives?
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's massive, isn't it? This is a sort of a soccer game of two halves, isn't it? Those who invested in the past in automation are winning by a country mile. You look at the classics like Amazon, Asus, Starling Bank, they're just racing ahead. Those who did not are in danger of being relegated or gone out of business. It's interesting because the one thing about COVID at the moment is the key thing is digital and automation are now on everybody's radar. In the right firms and those that are investing and have the money to invest, projects are getting funded. Things that would have taken years to do or years to get people's backing or minds around to them are now happening in weeks and not or months, but not years. But COVID has just driven massive change, in how we think, in where we're at, how we work, how we consume. Look at the number of people who are now buying online. It's massive. Those who've invested will survive and thrive. Those who've not invested, I hope to goodness they survive the pandemic. Certainly interesting times, but it really is winners and losers. Invest in digital and automation, and you will come out of this, doing really well. Don't invest, don't play the digital game, and I don't think you're going to survive much longer. You're going to get gobbled up, or the market will have moved on. Interesting times. I just pray and hope that everybody comes out of this on the right side of that equation.
As a global intelligent automation expert, Kieran, I'm eager to hear what you think are going to be some of the biggest disruptions we'll see in the next 1 to 3 years with respect to automation, AI, and other digitally transforming technologies.
That's a bit of a dangerous question. You make predictions and they're liable to go wrong. But look, it's a massive question. So let me have my go at it, and let me try and split it into short term and medium term, because after that it's too hard to see. And by medium term, I'm short term 1 to 2 years, medium 2 to 4 years. No, let's talk tech here that will drive massive change, because I'm very much a fan of, look, we're going to swing hard, and we're going to swing high. Otherwise, we stay off the field. So short term, and this is the stuff that's already here. And now maybe we haven't been using it to the best of organizations' abilities. Maybe organizations just haven't quite got round to understanding it entirely. Those that have are just exceeding. But I would say, look, mobile anything that's connected. So, to other websites, to CRMs, to deliver joined up multi-experiences. 5G, I don't think folks understand the power of that yet. That is literally anywhere operations at pace. AI, and that's AI everything. It's happening. I just don't think folks realize how much AI is happening. And I'm not even going to pick industries, because AI is happening in everything that we touch. And we need to be really careful with that as well, to make sure, we understand the risks as well as the tremendous benefits. Cloud computing, I call that again, anywhere operations. Firms are now getting this, now that for COVID is forcing firms to rethink how they work and where they work, and understanding, gosh, I can't get into a building. Well, cloud, it's not as prolific or as proliferated as we think. Certainly the future looks bright for that. Intelligent automation, that's bots and beyond automation, all of the toolkits that organizations need to make digital organizations or highly automated organizations. Voice agents, that do more than order milk. Voice agents that will go everywhere with us, like in the car, on our watches, in our homes. It'll just be a seamless connected experience. Chatbots that actually work. That would be amazing. I think that's getting better. And then the big thing is doing all this in a secure fashion. So I'm expecting to see even more, because this already exists. Machine learning, AI driven security or technology security, or algorithms so that, it attacks before being attacked. We need our data guarded. So all those things are now or short term. They will just accelerate at the rate of knots. And firms that invest in that tech are going to just go beyond anything we currently expect. Medium term, so bigger stuff, Hyperloop, absolutely. Transport is changing. An interesting bit at a time when transport's getting faster and faster. And again, the last couple of weeks, you've really seen Hyperloop starting to appear in volume. You sort of wonder, will actually people need it? Because AR, VR, anything immersive, allows us to attend meetings in, for example, Canada this morning, India tomorrow afternoon, our virtual digital twin or self can be in any of those meetings. And if we join up haptics with that, then we can feel as if we're shaking hands. We can look around the room. So those who want to get places physically, Hyperloop it. Those who want to go virtually, AR and anything immersive or VR. I think drones, driverless cars, absolutely will take off. I think they've been slowed mainly because people just worry about psychologically how they're going to work. Government rules and roads will have to catch up, and they've sort of fallen behind as well. But when you look at the statistics, driverless cars are actually more safe or less unsafe than we as tired humans can get. And drones, they're starting to take off, but you'll start to see those flying everywhere once the rules catch up. Digital assistants and twins, absolutely love the idea of that. So I love coming in a kind of Jarvis moment where a digital twin will allow me, or twins allow me, to be twice, 3 times, or 4 times as productive as I am. And we're not just talking about here the mundane, repetitive stuff. You can get automation to do that now, but something that's truly cognitive, that can work out my day, that if I want to go somewhere, it'll have already thought about, what way do I want to travel? Is it by plane, Hyperloop? Is it that I want to go in a driverless car? Is it that I want an AR, a virtual experience? It'll work out what's best. It'll have organized the meeting. It'll have sorted everything I want. It'll have produced the deck that I want to talk about, having looked at the data in the background. All those things will be possible in the next couple of years. IoT, connected devices, they've been taking off for a couple of years. I think now that's really going to take off. And I think AI, the internet, 5G is going to accelerate that. And one of the biggest ones will be quantum computing behind all this, because the amount of data that's getting put into the ecosystem is absolutely massive. And I see quantum computing in the next couple of years becoming standard as well. And if you start to combine everything I've talked about in the short term and in the medium term, this is going to be a massively different world that we will live in or feel or see in the next 2 or 4 years' time. Massively exciting, not without challenges, not without some element of rigor or control put around it. You'll have seen all the conversations around social media and its impact and the dangers of AI. But look, if we're learning, that's the thing about technology. We should leap, but leap cautiously, but move at pace. And if all those things come to pass, that power is just going to change how we live, consume, vote, you name it, work or don't work as the case may be. Absolutely exciting. Can't wait to see what's going to happen. And that's one of the reasons why I get into this industry. All that change is just amazing and invigorating when done right.
Amazing times we live in. Kieran, for the CIOs, CTOs, and other IT executives listening in, what is the one big must-have piece of advice you'd like them to take away from our discussion with regards to implementing automation at their organization?
Gosh, good question as well. Biggest one is commit. No half plans in this. This is digital transformation we're talking about, not digital incrementalism. Invest, get an executive team behind it, pay the money, put in the effort, pay for digital tooling, pay for talent, own it. Don't pass it down throughout the organization. Make sure that you commit to owning the initiatives, explaining the initiatives, delivering the initiatives, building the business case around them. But do this in a really well communicated way as you're running it this hard. Bust silos. This is about cultural change as much as about business transformation and technology change. So therefore you're going to have to get into Agile and failing fast and not allowing anyone or anything to block it. That's not to say you don't listen to dissenting voices. They sometimes keep you on track and remind you not quite to get excited and run off a cliff, but to think through things. Put as part of this commitment program and this no half plans, give KPIs to everyone or put them in everyone's goals for automation and digitization. And ultimately, as I said, when you're doing all this, go back to the advice as I said earlier on, Guy, Don't just rush in without a business plan. Plan with your CFO, ensure there's good governance around it so that the savings are going to be there and the incomes are going to be identified. But swing hard, swing high, or get out of the game. Don't do it bit by bit by bit, hoping something's going to suddenly miraculously happen. You're either in or you're out. And my preference in this one here, when you're talking about transformation, is really transform. Don't try tiny, tiny bits hoping the world is going to change around you. The organization is going to change if you're not putting in the effort.
Fantastic advice. All right. Looks like that's all the time we have for on this episode of Intelligent Automation Radio. Kieran, it's great for me personally to finally have you on the show and get some insights from you directly after enjoying so much of the outstanding content you've posted on the internet. I'm pleased to learn you're just as interesting in person as you are in print. Thank you very much for coming on to the podcast.
Oh, absolutely delighted. Look, I appreciate you inviting me here, and I hope to goodness this helps organizations out there.
Kieran Gilmurray, Global Automation Lead and an internationally recognized intelligent automation expert. Thank you for listening, everyone, and remember, don't hesitate, automate. Thank you so much for listening today. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. We publish new shows regularly, and you won't want to miss one. And please remember to give us a rating. It helps others find the show. Intelligent Automation Radio is sponsored by Ayehu, the leader in intelligent automation solutions for IT and cybersecurity. You can get more information about Ayehu by visiting our website at ayehu.com. That's AYEHU.com. Ayehu, creating the successful path to the self-driving enterprise.